It's Monday, May 9th, 2011, and this week's BeakerBeat, a blockbuster pharma M&A deal that surprised everyone, including the company that started it all but couldn't finish it. More on that, plus Pfizer gets a taste of the future with the looming patent cliff quickly approaching, and how Osama bin Laden's mother and the life sciences field helped confirm his demise to the world. All that and more in this week's edition of BeakerBeat, brought to you by Daiichi Sankyo. To learn more about Daiichi Sankyo, visit their company webpage on Beaker.com. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice, thanks for tuning in. We're here at a parade of astronauts. Very exciting, we'll show you some of that video coming up. But first, here's our top story. Valeant Pharma thought going hostile would do the trick in their efforts to buy Cephalon. Turns out Cephalon had other plans and decided to dance with someone nicer and with deeper pockets. Teva Pharma wooed Cephalon away from Valeant thanks to an offer of $81.50 per share, beating Valeant's $73 hostile bid by almost 12%. Now, the boards of both companies have approved the $6.8 billion deal, adding to Teva's growing lineup of branded drugs. This will also help offset revenues lost to generic competition for its MS treatment Copaxone. As Bloomberg notes, with Cephalon's drugs like Provigil and Nuvigil, Teva would hit $7 billion a year in branded sales. Now, Valeant hoped to grab Cephalon with a proxy fight it launched late in March, but Valeant made it clear it wouldn't get into a bidding war, leaving plenty of room for Teva to make a friendly offer to Cephalon. So Teva and Cephalon are happy, and Valeant is moving on. Saying, quote, time is the enemy, Valeant Pharma CEO Michael Pearson is still looking for a deal. Valeant has sworn off early-stage drug research, using acquisitions as a chance to grow the company's product list quickly. Biotech investors, speculating on Valeant's next move, drove up the share prices of several companies, like Forest Labs, Endo, Jazz, and Salix. Clearly, it's not a matter of if, but who and when. And this is original Mercury astronaut Scott Carpenter. Pretty amazing fella. So tell us what you think about this story or any story that you see in today's show. Very simple. Click on the orange button below our video box, type in a comment, send it to me. I promise I'll read and respond to every one of them. We do want to hear from you. And when you're done watching BeakerBeat, check out Beaker's blog and find out who is planning on offering retention bonuses to top performers after a massive merger. That story and more on Beaker's blog. It's Bob Cabana, former shuttle astronaut and the Kennedy Space Center director. Yep. The sales life of Pfizer's blockbuster drug Lipitor resembles a rocket launch. It took off in a hurry and soared skyward, but now is falling back to Earth, and fast. In a sign of things to come, sales of Lipitor dropped by 13% to $2.39 billion last year. Lipitor's sales will, of course, continue to decline when it loses patent protection in the U.S. later this year. It's not all bad news, though. Pfizer posted earnings of $2.2 billion on total sales of $16.5 billion. Sales in animal health grew by 16% to just under $1 billion. Consumer healthcare products grew by 12% to $745 million, and nutritionals also grew by 3% to $470 million. Now, we mention those three businesses because they are the ones CEO Ian Reid may sell to focus on the core prescription drug business. Reid said he's also considering selling off the established products unit, which focuses on off-patent drugs. Now, Forbes says the potential prices for those units could add up to $70 billion. That would leave the core business with an estimated value of $110 billion. So would selling off these parts actually leave a better Pfizer core? Not everyone is convinced, including some fund managers quoted as saying it's, quote, financial engineering, and would only, quote, make the stock more valuable. From a strategic point of view, it won't solve the problem of a lack of products to replace the aging Lipitor. Now, one Pfizer competitor, Merck, had been flirting with the idea of selling off the consumer health business it acquired in its merger with Schering-Plough, but not anymore. Why? Well, one reason is that the consumer health products tend to be popular in emerging markets where Merck is aiming to grow. We'll see if Pfizer sells out or does what Merck is doing and stays pat. It's amazing what you'll see at a parade. Time for quick hits now, and a new study found that drug-coated stents might have contributed up to $1.5 billion to annual Medicare spending since the device reached the market in 2003. No wonder companies are so competitive in that arena. An increase in drug costs, for which the study didn't account, may be partially responsible for the overall spending amount. AstraZeneca plans to demolish 450,000 square feet of space at its North American headquarters, and local officials are not happy. The 3 buildings marked for destruction, part of a sprawling campus in Fairfax, Delaware, were just built about 10 years ago, and those officials say the lab space could be valuable to local economic development efforts. The state's Economic Development Office tried to convince AZ to allow the state to take over the buildings as incubator space or for startup companies, but AZ said no, and has offered no real explanation as to why. The FDA, law enforcement, and Boston Scientific are working together to recover a shipment of endoscopy and urology, women's health medical devices stolen en route to the company's sterilization facility in early April. Both sides says that even though the labels on these devices might say they're sterile, they were stolen before the products were actually sterilized. Use of these non-sterile devices may lead to infection. Medtronic Chairman and CEO Bill Hawkins is delaying his planned retirement because the company's board of directors hasn't found his successor. Hawkins said the board will likely finalize the search in early fiscal 2012. He was expected to leave in April. The FDA and drug makers have agreed on how to define a major amendment to our Risk Evaluation and Mitigation Strategy, or REMS. The agreement, which could avoid additional review times for drug applications, may provide drug sponsors an additional 3 months in a review submission rather than postponing to a second cycle.
That is a fantastic shirt. I need that shirt.
Checking Money Matters now, and Allergan has paid $45 million up front and promised up to $375 million more in milestones to Switzerland's Molecular Partners AG. The deal is for global rights to a mid-stage ophthalmology program. Onyx Pharma has bailed out of its $550 million collaboration deal with Singapore's S-Bio. The California cancer drug developer paid $25 million up front at the beginning of 2009. Japanese media reports claim Teva is buying the country's third largest generics producer, Taiyo. The Nikkei newspaper reports the price tag on the deal is about $490 million. Now, Teva is not new to a buyout in Japan. In late 2009, they bought a stake in generics maker Taisho Pharma through its joint venture with Japan's Kawa.
Buzz. Wait a second. Not the one I was thinking of.
Fresh off Mother's Day, we have Osama bin Laden's mother to thank in helping confirm his identity after Navy SEALs killed him in a raid of his compound last week. It's likely that DNA from mitochondria, which are passed from mother to child and is the most certain way of identifying two people as siblings, were used in the identification. The military may have had previously collected samples of bin Laden's own DNA, but most likely they compared it to one of his half-siblings. Now, whether or not his relatives cooperated is unknown, but agencies might have obtained DNA samples on the sly, a well-known practice in law enforcement nowadays. The entire DNA analysis process likely took about 6 hours, plenty of time to deliver results for President Obama's televised announcement. 20, 10, even 5 years ago, that process would have been either impossible or lengthy at best. But thanks to advancements in the life sciences biz, and to bin Laden's mother, the U.S. was able to put the debate of if it was him to bed.
That's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the parade, and we'll see you next week.
Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog.
Dick Gordon, Apollo. Walt Cunningham, Apollo. Ed Mitchell, Apollo.